Welcome back to another video. So in my last mini PC review, it was an AMD. It was the Udo Bolt Gear. And a lot of you did say that, hang on, $399 US without RAM, without an SSD, and without an operating system is simply too much. So what I have here is one that includes all of those components, offers very similar performance, very similar spec to it. It's powered by the Ryzen 5 V2500U. So yes, it is a couple of generations old, but this particular mini PC has 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of NVMe storage, and it does include Windows 10. And overall, in my time testing and using it, it is a very good mini PC. So this is what you'll find in the box. Our power supply, this one has that common plug, so it's easy to source a different one if you wanted, but I of course ordered the EU plug that I have. Now this power supply is 65 watts, that one. And we also do get a SATA cable as well. So there is no VESA mounting bracket in this box, even though it does on the back of the mini PC actually have 2 holes to mount one. So up the front of the T-Boa MN25 here, we've got 2 USB 3 ports and separate audio jacks there. So one for the mic, one for headphones, and here is the power on button, which is made out of metal, and this frame around the outside is all metal. The lid is plastic for the wireless antenna reception, and there is a status LED here as well. Now with the rubber feet, the height of this mini PC, if you plan to use it, for example, in a TV cabinet, is about 52. So I've measured it, about 52 millimeters in total. Then on the left and right side, we have no ports whatsoever, just some intake vents here down the bottom to help the airflow. Then on the back here, we've got our power in socket right there, Gigabit LAN, 2 USB 2 ports, Displayport, so this is 4K 60Hz, and then HDMI 2, which is good to see on this. Also 4K 60Hz, so you can run dual displays with this, and then 2 USB 3 ports. So what is missing here? I would have liked to have seen a USB 3.1 Type-C port. That would have been good to have on this, and there's also no mic on board this particular mini PC, for example, for using Windows Cortana. Then on the other side, which is made out of a hard plastic, we've got our 2 mounting screws for that VESA bracket, which is missing from the box. Did Banggood remove it to lower the shipping weight? I don't know. I hope they didn't. And then the 4 rubber feet we have to remove if you want to gain access to the internals, that is. The lid, this one is made out of plastic. This is for the wireless antenna reception. So using my screwdriver, I removed those 4 screws that are underneath the feet that I just pointed out with the underside of it. So 2 SODIMM slots here, which is really good to see because a lot of manufacturers are only including just the 1 SODIMM because that does cut down on their production costs. But this also means we can upgrade the RAM, but it's also running in dual channel here for our maximum memory bandwidth for aided performance there of just over single channel, of course. Now our NVMe drive here, and this is 2280 in size, and they've put a really nice heatsink on top of this with some thermal pads. Now most manufacturers wouldn't even bother with this because they just let it get hot, and who cares if it throttles a little bit. Underneath it, we do have then a mini PCIe wireless card, so you can upgrade that card. You can also upgrade the RAM to say 16 or 32 gigabytes if you wanted to do so. So lifting off the lid here, because I undid those 4 screws, it actually connects up to the plastic lid. You can see that we've only got 1 wireless antenna on it, which isn't great. So if you were going to put, say, a wireless card in the AX200, which is Wi-Fi 6, the latest generation, you would need to install an additional antenna there. And if you're probably thinking, why are the thermals on this one later I want to show you pretty good? The fan noise as well is excellent. This is why. It's basically using here what I would almost classify as a gaming laptop cooler. Pretty much the size of it. I often see ones like this, especially in the old MSI gaming laptops I used to review. This size here, it vents out and sucks in the air from around here, but it's getting that airflow just around the motherboard here from those vents I showed you on the side. And later on we'll take a look at the thermals and the power usage. But where does the SATA 2.5-inch drive go? Well, right here. It goes on the bottom. You can see there are some clips to install it. But just like the VESA mount, it doesn't actually include those screws we need to mount a 2.5-inch hard drive, which is very poor. Why is it not in the box? So this AMD mini PC here does come with a completely unlocked BIOS. Our RAM configuration is dual channel too. I showed you that when we had a look at the internal, so 2 sticks of DDR4, 4 gigabytes. Under advanced, we do have some options under here. The first one is an interesting one under AMD CBS, and that is our graphics configuration for the Vega 8 internal graphics there. We do have integrated graphics, sorry. So here we can adjust the allocated RAM for it. So if you wanted to perhaps make games a little bit smoother, give it 2 gigabytes of RAM if you did add more RAM, that is. We've only got 8 gigabytes here, so I recommend just leaving it on 1 gigabyte or auto. Auto is by default. And another interesting setting too is under the power management configuration here. So if it does power off, or you want to run a file server, then you can set this to simply power on. And anytime it will go off, detects the power state is back on, it will boot up again. And that is great for servers, of course. And then NVMe configuration here, so that Intel NVMe drive I will be benchmarking now once we get into Windows. On first boot, it just went straight into Windows. Now this is set up with Windows 10 Home on here, and if you're not happy with it already actually going straight into Windows, I do recommend just do a factory reset. I wouldn't bother about completely reinstalling Windows with this because that's actually an added hassle. However, you might not be too happy with the way they have partitioned this particular SSD. So they've got 100 gigabytes allocated to Windows, that's our Windows partition, and then 2 here, D and E, for data. So they're almost 70 gigabytes there for possibly installing your files or games or whatever like that. So a lot of people don't normally like that because they are pretty limited. You can actually use tools like Partition Manager and merge those two partitions and then create a almost 140 gigabyte partition. Then is probably the way to go. And that way, if you do end up doing a factory reset to the C partition, then you still have, of course, your data that is going to be on D. Now I have benchmarked that Intel drive, and you can see here that the sequential reads are almost pretty much double that of what you get from a SATA 3 SSD. Now you can install a 2.5-inch SATA 3 SSD if you wanted to do so, but it wouldn't be quite as fast as this. In terms of write speeds though, that write speed is about the same as a SATA 3 drive. Now the random reads are a little bit low there actually, and our random writes, they're not too bad, but this is definitely not the fastest NVMe drive. Far from it. They can get up to 3000 megabytes per second sequential and about 2000 writes or 2500 writes. But it is an Intel, so this is a brand drive and it should be reliable. So under the device manager too, just to point out that our Gigabit LAN is right here, Realtek, and the wireless card is also Realtek too, that is within this particular one here. Now you will see we do have right there the Ryzen 5 2500U is listed, of course, 8 times because it is a quad core with 8 threads there. So it's very similar to the last AMD Mini PC I looked at, actually, this particular system on a chip, because it has a very similar turbo, which is 3.6 gigahertz maximum. Now, with a GPU-Z here, we're looking at, you can see they've allocated, yes, a full gigabyte, that is shared memory. So I have Windows all set up, and what I've done is also update our drivers here. So I am on the latest AMD drivers. Now, the Radeon software always keeps crashing on me. I reinstalled it twice, and I've just given up now. I don't know why that is happening. I think it's just instability there that we have with that software. So the price of this, I believe you can actually get it for cheaper. It's around 309 euros or 350 US dollars. That is cheaper than the last mini PC I looked at, which had the AMD embedded chip in it, which is the 1605B. This has similar kind of performance. Actually, it's a little bit better. And so the price isn't too bad considering it does have that RAM and the SSD, because that was just a bare bones, the last model I looked at. So I have run a few benchmarks here. So this is our Geekbench 4 score. I still like to run this one just as reference because I'm more familiar with these scores than I am, say, Geekbench 5. It's not a bad score, but it doesn't beat the Intel counterparts. But you could say that that's because, well, Geekbench does possibly favor Intel chips a little bit more there. Geekbench 5, this is still a good score, okay, with the maximum 3.6 gigahertz turbo. That is a bit lower, of course, than the Intels I have been reviewing. Now, when it comes to 3D Mark, this score is very good. This is definitely better than the UHD 620 graphics we get integrated with the Intel chips. This is the Vega 8, and look at that graphics score. That's quite good. CPU score as well is not actually bad. And this result, according to our 3D Mark, is 17% better than others. So let's get on now to have a look at Cinebench results. So this is where the score is very good. So 572 CB, okay? Not bad at all. Remember that this is with the stock TDP that we are running on this particular model. I review everything as stock. There's no tweaks. I'm not installing more RAM. I'm not even giving the GPU more memory either. It still has just that 1 gigabyte allocated to it. And then let's have a look at the score of Cinebench R20. Again, a very good score. This does better the Intel chips I have been reviewing. The last Intel Mini PC was the Whiskey Lake U, the 8565U. And you can see this is slightly better by just over 25 points there. And it is better than the Udo Bolt V8 little motherboard that I did look at with the AMD embedded solution there. So a very good performance. All right, so onto some video playback performance, but I just wanted to mention that all the benchmarks I do run are run with the system at idle. If I've got things open now, it's just to speed up the process of me showing you these various different things. And a little bit of multitasking as well, just to show you how it multitasks. So I wanted to just demonstrate here some playback performance of videos, but before I mention that, our wireless, okay, I'm getting full signal strength here, and sometimes with the other mini PCs reviewed, it could be just 1 bar less. Now, maximum throughput from this Realtek adapter is only about 400. I'm hitting about 390, 400 megabits per second. That's it with a file server transfer. And okay, if you want faster, definitely upgrade that card because it is a little bit of a weakness of the system. So if I go in here now to some of the clips I love to show, very demanding ones here. So I'll start out with probably the most demanding. And this is the Jellyfish file, 140 megabits per second, 4K, HEVC 10-bit. And look at this. Second or so to get started with a little bit of a stutter there, but that's normal. And there we go. That is running really good. So bear in mind, this is playback through Windows video app to play it. If you use something like Kodi, it's even faster and smoother. But that's not really stressing things out. Look at the GPU. It's at 70%, the Vega 8 graphics. And then let's just step it up to 4K 60. This is a Sony Swordsmith demo. And you can see, no problem. Absolutely no problem. Skipping ahead too. Super quick. And so for video files, if you want to use this as just a media player, or one that's pretty much actually overkill for that because it is very quick at this. No problem, okay? But let's go and have a look at now video editing. So I've already got this open. And I just want to point out here that the timeline is smooth, but a little bit of lag. It's not exactly the playback. You can see it takes a few seconds before it's going to catch up. There we go. So that was a couple of seconds delay. And it's the same with the Intels there as well. Now this, bear in mind, is the playback resolution set to 1/4. If you keep it on full, that's the full 4K, it's even slower and more taxing. So I recommend going with half or 1/4. Now what about export times? I've actually just done an export test, but my stupid PC didn't record the audio for some reason, and it was 1 minute and 2 seconds. But I will do it again here, of course, for everyone that is watching this. So we'll just move this over and get this out of the way. And we'll go and use the YouTube preset. Okay, this is what I always do with my tests. So here it is, just YouTube 4K Ultra HD. And I need to get 1 minute of footage, more or less here with the timeline. And then I should hit export and reset that timer there just to show you how long this takes. And it's very good. So there we go, 1 minute and 24 seconds. So this I'm going to hit now, of course, reset. And there's going to be about a second delay. So I'm going to hit start and export. So that was maybe 1-2 seconds. It'll be about just under 1 minute. And look at how fast this is moving. Really, really, really quick. Absolutely astounding how quick this is in the beginning, that is. Of course, all of the heavy lifting, that has been done by our Vega 8 graphics. The CPU is basically idle there at 13%. So just about to finish up. As soon as that hits 100% and disappears, I shall hit pause. There we go. So that's about a minute. So 1 minute of 4K footage will take about 1 minute. Almost exactly there. That is very good considering the Intel Whiskey Lake U's that I have just reviewed recently in the channel. They have a much higher turbo of 4.6 gigahertz. Will take about 1 minute and 18 seconds or 20 seconds. So about 20% slower than this right here. The difference between the Intel and the AMD. So it is actually impressive, that encoding speed. Of course, due to the new updates that Adobe have brought through with Premiere Pro. So let's take a look at our thermals and the power consumption. So bear in mind that this is 1 hour and I've been pushing it very, very hard, but I have actually been running it for various days now and it does not run into any thermal throttling. So maximum turbo, it does get up to the claimed 3.6 gigahertz, not a problem. And if you have a look down here at our thermals, they are very, very good. So no problem. So it does get a bit warmer than the Udo Mini PC that I just reviewed, also with AMD, but this gets up to 62. That is still perfectly fine. And the cooling on this, the fan noise is great. Really good fan noise on this. So the maximum it is pulling is about 27, you can see here, watts. Now you always add just a few more. That's what it'll be pulling from the wall, from the socket. I don't have a wattometer, unfortunately, but we can estimate here about 30 to 31 or so watts in total at peak load that this will be pulling. Now this is just popped in. I was loading this in the background here because it does take a while to import all of these pages and spreadsheets here. So this is 800 pages, very heavy file that I just like to test out. In fact, look at that, it's well over 800. And just wanted to show you the performance is very, very good here. So scrolling up and down through all those different pages, it's not a problem, okay? If I did this on the Gemini Lake Intels that I'm reviewing, they're only, of course, very low-powered chips. They really struggle with this, with a bit of lag and things, but not here. So me showing you any more sort of performance like this that is very light, documents and tasks like that, and website browsing. So having Chrome tabs, you can open like 10 up, 20 or whatever, and go through them. No real lag. It does perform really quick like that. Now, YouTube playback of also 4K files, no need for me to show you because it is smooth. It is very smooth. Not a problem. But I will jump now into some games and we'll check out what we can expect from a demanding AAA title, which is Grand Theft Auto 5. So just like the last AMD Mini PC I reviewed, I have it set onto the lowest settings, so 720p and all of the lower settings. Okay, and you can see that it's around 50 frames per second up to 60. Now this performance here is about 20 frames per second on average higher than the Whiskey Lake U Core i7 Intel Mini PC that I just reviewed about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't just review it, but it's so much better at gaming, the Vega 8, as you can see here. Even though this is, okay, yes, it's an older title, but this performance is, I think, very good for such a small little mini PC. I have a look at one more title now, and that is Counter-Strike. So Counter-Strike, this runs good at 720p on the lowest possible settings, just to keep always a over 60 frames per second average right here. So I don't imagine I'm going to last for too long. Wow, I actually got a kill. And a quick look at Linux Mint. So it doesn't like that Realtek wireless LAN card, so I recommend hunt around and find the driver for it, of course, but if you can't, then just upgrade that wireless card to something a little bit better. Maybe the Intel 9260. It's Gigabit wireless LAN, and it's also very cheap. You can pick them up off AliExpress for about like $8 US. So guys, let me just recap here that this offers excellent thermals. The fan noise is super good. I mean, I didn't include a sample for you because there is actually no need. It's very hard to hear that that fan is on unless you're doing something very demanding, and it is a pleasant, just hushing, whooshing kind of sound that comes from it. It's not offensive at all there. So we have the two display out options. We've got Displayport and HDMI 2. That is great. The SSD speed, okay, for NVMe is not the fastest, but they did put a nice heatsink on there, and it does offer sequential reads that are at least faster than your typical SATA 3 drive that we often see in these. Dual channel RAM configuration is another positive, and it does come with Windows 10. Now that Windows 10 install seems to have already been actually set up. Someone's already gone into it because I didn't go through that normal Windows 10 setup procedure that you normally have to enter in your username and connect up to a network and all that sort of stuff. Isn't there. Now a lot of people won't like that. It's a bit of a security concern possibly. So just do a factory reset, or just do your own install your own operating system that maybe you might have there. It should in the BIOS at least have that key there for Windows 10 Home that should actually work when you do a new install there. So Linux will run on this, but the wireless card, we don't have the driver for it. The biggest real weakness of this for me is that wireless card. It's not particularly quick. I mean, it's still as good as the Intel Wireless AC3165. You get around 400 megabits per second throughput. Ideally, I would like to see a little bit more. We do have Gigabit LAN on here, but we don't have a Type-C port that offers display out as well, which would have been nice. But still, running the two monitors I think is sufficient for most people. So where are the weaknesses in this? The real weakness, maybe because it's a little bit dated, but it still offers better performance than the 8th gen Intel Whiskey Lake Core i7s I have been reviewing. If you look at Geekbench, scores okay. It's lower than those, but they tend to favor Intel. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's Cinebench. You can see the performance is better than the Intel counterparts there. And then the integrated GPU, the Vega 8 graphics, it does do a lot better than Intel's, okay? And it just plays back the video files that I tested flawlessly. And then look at that video encoding, 4K video encoding, much quicker than the Intel's, about 20%, 18% faster. Very good to see. So overall, the fan noise, the thermals are excellent. And the fact that we can upgrade the RAM, we can upgrade the wireless card, you can add an SSD. But why is it not in the box? The screws for the 2.5-inch drive, and we also do not have the VESA mount bracket. Did it fall out of my box in transit? I don't know, but it is missing there. That's one thing to bear in mind. So for the price, yes, a lot of people would still say, oh, for the same price I can build myself a gaming monster. I would like to see that, but it still is reasonable, I believe, because we've got the RAM, we've got the SSD, and around about 300 euros. I think there are coupons out there as well with Banggood that you can pick it up for even better price there. So thank you so much for watching this in-depth look at the MN25 here from T-Bao. And if you're interested in this, there is a link in the description of where to get this particular model here. And do check out my other AMD, but it's the embedded Ryzen mini PC review that offers this kind of performance, but is more expensive, but it can actually output 4 displays in total, that one, which is quite interesting there. So I hope to see you back in my next up and coming video. Thank you so much for watching.